Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salatu wa salamu ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Amma ba'du fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qala Allah ta'ala wa la tahliqu ru'usakum hatta yablugha al-hadyu mahilla. Faman kana minkum maridan aw bihi ra'sihi fafidyatun min siyamin aw sadaqatin aw nusuk. فإذا أمنتم فمن تمتع بالعمرة إلى الحج فما استيسر من الهدي فمن لم يجد فصيام 3 أيام في الحج و7 إذا رجعتم تلك 10 كاملة. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most magnificent, the most beneficent, the most merciful. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all his ni'mah and favors that he has bestowed upon us. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the divine guidance, the tawfiq and the life to be present here today. Last week we were discussing the matters regarding to Hajj, and today is a continuation of that. And courses under discussion is وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ, and we discussed the itmam and the completion and the fulfillment of the rituals of Umrah and the fulfillment of the rituals of Hajj. And then we discuss about the sacrificial animals, and says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says فَإِنْ أُحْصِرْتُمْ فَمَا اسْتَيْسَرَ مِنَ الْهَدِيِ, says if you are restricted in any way, then whatever is convenient for you to offer from the sacrificial animal. The sacrificial animal, we do not take our sacrificial animals with us. We buy them from there. We purchase our animals from there. But those people who used to live in Medina and other areas of Arabia, they would take their sacrificial animals with them. And that's called hadi, which is called a hadi. And when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went for the Umrah, and he was restricted in going, he was prevented in continuing forward. In order for them to come out of Ihram, they had to sacrifice the animals that they had, the camels, the goats, and the cows, whatever that was available. So we have been, this is a reiteration of the rule, that if you're going for Umrah and somehow you are prevented, or if you're going for Hajj and somehow are prevented, and you're in Ihram, you do. Then the way to get out of Ihram is to offer a sacrificial animal. Give you a mithal. You're going for Umrah, Allah subhanahu. Somebody went for Umrah, and as they were going towards Mecca, they became extremely sick, to the extent that they could not continue any further. Or they had to go somewhere else to another hospital, or whatever that is. Now, how does that person get out of his ihram? Now he has the sacrificial animal with him. What does he do with the animal? He can't hospital, right? You can't tie it outside the hospital. What's going to happen? It's very easy. In those days, what they used to do, they used to make shi'ar of the animals. Shi'ar of the animals means that they would put some kind of a sign on it, and either they would put it on the hump of the animal, or they would either put a necklace around the animal to indicate to people that this is a sacrificial animal that needs to be sacrificed in the vicinity of Haram. And they would actually let the animal go. They would literally release the animal, and that animal would be diverted by people. And they would see the animal go, this needs to go to Mecca. Nobody would touch it, because let it go, let it go, let it go. And they would allow that animal to go to Mecca. And when it gets to Mecca, somebody will sacrifice it. Why? Because they know that this is a sacrifice that has been sent here, that to be sacrificed, and they would sacrifice it. So that is one way to get out of Ihram. Because remember, the sacrificial animal has to be slaughtered within the vicinity of the Haram. In the hudud of Haram, it has to be, it cannot be like, for example, you are restricted in going to Mecca, and a person says, let me just call back home, and they can give an animal back home. You can't sacrifice an animal back home, that animal has to be sacrificed in the vicinity of the haram. So that's why they're used to. So if you have an animal, sacrificial animal with you, all you would do is put a sign on it, somehow indicating that this needs to go to haram. And the caravans, those people, they would just take it to haram. It would, and even if it was alone, eventually it would be guided and eventually it would get to haram. And then a person would be able to get out of haram. If you are traveling for Hajj, and this has happened to us before, and you find that a person is extremely ill. He does not have the strength to do tawaf. He does not have the strength to do Hajj. He does not have the strength to do anything. There is no way this person can make an umrah. He's sleeping. He's knocked out. He's a solution for that is to put the ihram on him and take him with you the hudud in ihram. You just make a sacrifice on behalf of him and take him out of ihram and put him in the regular clothing until a time comes that the days of Hajj come. Because he just doesn't have the ability to do anything. He doesn't have the ability to do the umrah. He's just too sick. So sometimes this could happen, and sometimes people don't know what to do in this type of a situation. That this person's too sick, what shall we do? Put the haram on him, no problem. And just take him to Mecca, and then a sacrificial animal on his behalf. And anyway, so if for whatever reason a person is restricted, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا رُؤُوسَكُمْ حَتَّى يَبْلُغَ الْهَدْيُ مَحِلَّهُ. Do not shave your head until the sacrificial animal doesn't reach its place of slaughter. Doesn't reach its place of slaughter. And place of slaughter, mahil, is the place of where that means that there is actually an area that is being dedicated, which the animal needs to be slaughtered within that vicinity. If it is slaughtered outside that vicinity, the sacrifice will not be accepted. Has to be slaughtered in haram. According to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi, the tartib is what Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhim, tartib is an emphasized sunnah. Tartib, emphasized sunnah. What does that mean? Emphasized sunnah means that highly recommended. What did the Prophet ﷺ do? The Prophet ﷺ followed the tartib. Those people who go for Hajj the first time, they should be following tartib. Unless something out of the normal happens, which is completely out of your control, that puts you out of the tartib, which is something out of your control. Then you'll have to, sometimes it's happened. I mean, like the bus is going from Arafah, it just went straight to Mecca. Oh, like, there's a huge problem there. They didn't get, the police officers didn't allow it to stand anywhere, and they ushered it along and straight into Mecca. Done. So what happens is, that is out of your control. It's something that is out of your control. But the best thing to do is when you realize that the bus driver is lost, as every other bus driver is. Remember, the bus drivers in that time, they don't have enough drivers in the country to drive everybody who are local. That's why we have murshids. Every bus driver has a murshid. Murshid means that a person who's actually navigating them. Your Google, through Hajj, because you don't know which, at that time they changed the ways, right? Best thing is just to get off the bus. Sometimes you don't think that's obvious, right? It's just an obvious thing. Okay, the bus is going and it's not stopping in Muzdalifah. The police didn't allow it to stop. You force the bus to stop. You get off the bus. Take your luggage, get off the bus. It's so easy. But sometimes the obvious doesn't seem, it just doesn't occur to you because you're scared. You're scared because what will happen? How will I get from here back to Mina? Don't be scared about that. Everybody gets to Mina. Nobody stays in Muzdalifah. Otherwise, those people who get lost in Muzdalifah are by the thousands. They'll still be there. They're not there. All right. After Hajj, everybody's found. Actually, people just the crowd. Like, for example, people are walking in one direction. You just continue walking in that direction. Do you know that if you left Arafah and you walked where the people end up in Muzdalifah, if you continued walking from there, you'd end up in Jamarat, Mina. And if you continued walking from there, you'd end up where? Makkah, right? So it's I'm not saying it's difficult to get. It's easy to get lost, but it's but if you panic, then you're going to like you won't know what's happening. Just keep following, just follow the flow, and slowly you'll get there. And just do what the people are doing. They stop in Muzdalifah. Continue. You've got your sleeping bag with you. Just put it out there. Go to sleep. Again, panic stations is not what you want to do. Usually what happens, husband gets separated from the spouse. The wife gets separated from the husband. And now that's a problem because now they're both looking for each other, right? It's not a problem looking for each other. The problem is you only have you have a certain window, right? You have a window and that window is closing fast. So you should educate each other. Listen, if we get lost, no big deal. You know what we'll do? We'll just meet afterwards. You know how to get there. Just keep following everybody, but complete your Hajj. And you make sure that she has enough in her pocket and you have enough money in your pocket. Pockets there in Muzdalifah, you won't have your ihram. You won't be wearing your normal trousers and tops. You will be wearing that, belt, the money belt. So as long as you have enough that you can just buy the food, you can just buy a cup of tea, you can get somebody's going to give you some water. What do you need for a couple of hours? You're going to get to Mina in a couple of hours anyway. And when you get to Jamarat, you don't, you make a point. Listen, if we get lost, we'll meet at the hotel. It's so easy. Because where are you going to meet in Jamarat? Is it underneath the big Jamarat? You're going to get lost, right? So we'll meet in Mecca or we'll meet back. Everybody gets found, nobody gets lost, all right? So, but what you don't want to do is panic. And when people panic, that's when things go wrong. And usually people panic. Usually, the default status is panic mode. Default, it happens all the time. So again, it's just a matter of training yourself as to where you're going. And the workshops that happen before a person goes for Hajj, it's not enough in the sense that you're not going to get the Hajj in 1 hour of a workshop. If you really wanted a workshop of Hajj, you would take each day. Today we're going to talk about Muzdalifah, Mina. Next week we're going to talk about Muzdalifah. Or next week we're going to talk about Arafah. Like you take each module and you explain it in detail. That could possibly help. But just to like an 1 hour seminar Hajj group, and this is how it's going to, we trust you. That's all, because really that's all that, you can't really grasp the Hajj in an hour. But anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا رُؤُوسَكُمْ حَتَّى يَبْلُغَ الْهَدْيُ مَحِلَّهُ فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضٌ. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala understands, what if somebody gets sick? They're in ihram. And the doctor says, okay, or somebody fell, they injured their head. They're in ihram. Now the doctor says, I need to cut your hair in order to give to put the stitches on. Well, now what? So hair has to be cut, right? So, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضٌ. If a person becomes sick, sickness could be in any part of the body. What if it's your leg, and the leg needs to be stitched, and the hair around the wound needs to be cut? Obviously, cutting the hair of haram. Is it just the hair of the head, or is it the hair of the entire body? Hair of the entire body, right? So wherever part that is. So if a person becomes sick for whatever reason, or certainly he has a difficulty in his head, what could that be? difficulty in his head. Nowadays, it's rare. Not as I wouldn't use the word rare. It happens, but in those days, remember, people have journeyed. Let's just say if you were traveling from the subcontinent, or if you were traveling from your country, right, and you didn't traveling by airplane didn't exist. You had to travel by road. You were traveling by camel, or you were traveling by. When you got to miqat is you're still far away from Mecca, right? So when you got to miqat, from which you have to put the ihram on. Now, how long is that period of time till you get to Mecca? You'll be disheveled. You'll be in a very bad state. And your hair throughout the journey has grown long, right? Now, what happens when the hair grows long? It's disheveled. You're not taking care of it. You have a caravan of people that you're traveling with. You're traveling with livestock. What's the possibility? What's going to happen in the hair? Hint, hint. What would happen? You're going to get lice. What are you going to get? Lice. Everybody knows what lice is, right? Lice? Bug. So there could be very irritating. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيض, either become sick, or بِهِ أَذًى مِنْ رَأْسِهِ, and suddenly your head becomes difficult to deal with. You have some, meaning that you developed head lice, and you're still in ihram. What do you do? فَفِدْيَةٌ مِنْ صِيَامٍ أَوْ صَدَقَةٍ أَوْ نُسُكٍ. Then a person should give some ransom in fidya, some ransom, some give sadaqah. Some say half a sa of food, of grain should be given as sadaqah. Some say 3 should be done so that you can compensate. Fidyatun min siyamin, either a ransom or ransom through sadaqah, or ransom through nusuk, or a ransom through a sacrificial animal. That would take care of anything that happens during the period of ihram. That means you're still in ihram. You understand? But you've taken care of that thing that came into your ihram that caused some kind of a deficiency or a problem in your ihram, and you repelled it by one of these 3 avenues. Either you repelled it through fasting, or you repelled that problem through charity, or you repelled it through a sacrifice. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِذَا أَمِنْتُمْ. Now, when you are safe, فَمَنْ تَمَتَّعَ بِالْعُمْرَةِ مَا اسْتَيْسَرَ مِنَ الْهَدْيِ. In those days, the journey to Hajj was perilous, meaning that you could be robbed. You know that, right? People used to get robbed when they used to go for Hajj. Robbers used to rob them because they knew that the Hujjaj are going to bring stuff. They're going to get robbed. So because, but if once you are in a place of safety, now, when a person arrives at the miqat, either the ihram of 2 types, going from outside. I'm not talking about those people who live in Mecca. Us traveling from outside to Mecca, and you're going for Hajj. Not talking about Umrah. Umrah is easy. Just make Umrah intention for Umrah. There is nothing to it. When you get to the miqat, you just make intention for Umrah. Hajj is different. You have 2 choices. How many? 2. Number 1 choice, that you make tamattu, or second choice is you make Quraan. The difference between the 2 is this. That when you arrive at miqat, you're going to say labbaik lil umrah, that you first going to make the and then you make umrah. After umrah, and cut your hair, and after cutting your hair, you will come out of and then you will wait in Mecca in the vicinity of Haram till the days of Hajj, and then from wherever you are stationed, meaning wherever you are living in your hotels, you will put the ihram on for Hajj and then go for Hajj. That procedure, the way, if you make Hajj in that way, it is called tamattu. Tamattu means that you benefited. What was the benefit? That you separated the Umrah and Hajj. You separated the Umrah and Hajj with two ihrams. Meaning first you made intention for Umrah and then you made intention for Hajj. And you separated, you came out of your ihram into your regular clothing, went and on the intention of going for Hajj. You understood? Sisters understood, inshallah? So that is called. And a second option, which is for the brave and the young men, is to do Quraan. You don't need to take your shoes off. You don't need. So it goes Quraan. Quraan is that from the miqat, you made intention for Hajj, but also you wanted to make Umrah. So you will make intention for Umrah and Hajj together in one ihram, and now you will not take off your ihram throughout that entire period. You arrive in Mecca. Nowadays we have 5 days before Hajj, 2 days before Hajj. I mean 5 days, and even the ihram becomes difficult. But in those days, they used to arrive how long before Hajj? Way before Hajj. So now, that means that somebody would be in ihram, constant ihram, for that long period of time. And again, the possibility of developing lysis even more, right? So these long periods of ihram, but obviously Quraan is more rewardable to do it that way. But the way you come into Mecca, you make Umrah, and after Umrah, you do not cut your hair. You stay in ihram all the way till the days of Hajj, and then after Hajj you become halal. In both scenarios, Umrah is done. In the first scenario, after the Umrah, you take the ihram off. In the second scenario, you just don't take the ihram off at all. But you still did Umrah. Now, if you benefited from making Umrah, then you still have to give a dam for that. Dam-e tamattu or dam-e qiran. Now, when you give a dam means that it's not a penalty, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَمَنْ تَمَتَّأَ بِالْعُمْرَةِ إِلَى الْحَجِّ, whoever benefited with annexing their Hajj, meaning they did the Umrah, became a mutamatti, or either you become a qarin, because فَمَسْتَيْسَرَ مِنَ الْهَدْيِ, for a sacrificial animal, in order to show his gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing him to join the Umrah and Hajj together. Allowing him to, because in the days of Jahiliyyah, they wouldn't make Umrah in the Ayyamul Ashhurul Hajj. They will not make Umrah in the days of Jahiliyyah. They would not make Umrah in the days of Hajj. Islam came and Islam allowed to make Umrah in the days of Hajj, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that that allowance from Allah has that, and the gratitude of that allowance is to give a sacrificial animal. So that's why Hujjaj go from here have to give a sacrificial animal, and that sacrificial animal is behalf of their annexing the Umrah in with the Hajj. Now, it is not part of their regular qurbani, the regular sacrifice. The regular sacrifice is not necessary upon the traveler. And because the Haji is a traveler, so the regular sacrifice that we make, the qurbani that we make at the time of Eid al-Adha, that sacrifice is no longer wajib upon you, is no longer necessary because you're a traveler. So the qurbani that we do actually there is the qurbani for making Umrah in the days of Hajj, not because it is the qurbani for the actual udhiyah that we do at Eid al-Adha when we are back home. It is a different qurbani. Understood the difference? Okay. But then there is a possibility. What if a person doesn't have it? What if the person doesn't have an allowance that will allow, or he had the allowance, and somehow that, he just doesn't have any money left at the end of Hajj. Or something else happened by which he lost it, whatever. Or he had a sacrificial animal and it perished. Now what? Most scenarios, you'll probably know before Hajj that you do not have the sacrifice. Yes or no? Are you allowed to fast in the days of Hajj?
No.
Arafah, are you allowed? So on the Eid al-Adha, there's no fasting, is there? There's the 3 days of not fasting, all right? So what you'll do is the following. Says that فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ, if a person doesn't find anything to sacrifice, he doesn't have the ability to sacrifice, فَصِيَامُ ثَلَاثَةِ أَيَّامٍ فِي الْحَجِّ, then he will fast 3 days in Hajj. وَسَبْعَةٍ إِذَا رَجَعْتُمْ, and 7 fast when he gets. The 3 days of Hajj, he will put his ihram days earlier. And then what he will fast before the 9th of Dhul-Hijjah, completing all 3 fasts before the 9th. 3 days. And then he will go for Hajj. And after Hajj, he will be able to come out of his ihram and he will not need to offer a sacrificial animal. Got it? Got it? So for 3 days whilst you're there, وَسَبْعَةٍ إِذَا رَجَعْتُمْ, and 7 fast when you come home. تِلْكَ عَشَرَةٌ كَامِلَةٌ says. That is a complete 10 days of fasting. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ. ذَلِكَ means that al-hukm, meaning the above rules that have just been mentioned in regards to making tamattu and dame tamattu, and are for those individuals whose families do not live in the precinct of the Masjidul Haram. Meaning that there is a third type of Hajj, which is called Hajj Ifrad. Ifrad is that you only make the intention for Hajj. So remember, Hajj, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that coming from outside, you are either going to be what? Mutamatti or qarin. Mutamatti or qarin. Or but if you're living in the vicinity of Haram, then what will you do? You will make ifrad. And in ifrad, because you have done Umrah, there is no sacrifice. Now, a lot of people, those people who go Hajj, sometimes books, and they say, okay, if I do ifrad, I don't have to make qurbani. So they says, okay, let me just not do Umrah. But then you're going there once in a, it's a once in a lifetime journey. Why would you want to cut corners? Why would you want to cut corners like that? Make tamattu or do qiran. You don't need to do ifrad. Allah says, ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ أَهْلُهُ حَاضِرِ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ. That is for those individuals whose families do not live in the vicinity of the Haram. Meaning that this rule is for these people and this rule for these people. That are there situations in which a person going from the outside should only do that? You would be in a very long time. Just like a muqarin, right? You would be in ihram for a long time. Wattaqullah, and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all of the above commandments that have been given to you, and everything that has just been taught to you in these verses in regards to the rituals. وَعَلَمُوا, and remember, أَنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ, Allah is severe in severe in punishing for those who go against His wishes, for those who go against the above rules. So technically, it's not, Hajj is not what you want to do. Specific rituals that have time, a certain place, in a certain manner. It's not up to us how we do it. And in the deen, some says, La ikraha fi din. Oh, there's no compulsion in the deen. You're just using the verse incorrectly. I mean, can you say, if I ask you to pray salat and you say La ikraha fi din, there's no compulsion in the deen. Is that correct? So utilizing the verses incorrectly doesn't make it right. Utilizing the verses incorrectly doesn't make it right, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is saying, fear Allah in the above that have just been given to you. Against his wishes, and if you go against these commandments, Allah is severe in punishment. That means follow the rules. We're there for a small period of time. Follow the rules. The area is sacred. It has its own system. Makkah Haram has its own system. We have to follow the system that's there, not because, like people ask, why? You don't have the answer for why, because this is how Allah has said it. Why should I do that? Now, brother, you need to give a penalty. Why? 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 Because you did something wrong. That's why. Understand? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Al-Hajju ashhurum ma'lumat. Hajj is in known months. Ashhur, months that are ma'lumat. As far as we're concerned, that Hajj is the month of Hajj, right? But are there other months that are also considered Ashhurul Hajj? Yes or no? No. Yes. So, Eid al-Fitr happens when? Which month? No? Eid al-Fitr doesn't happen in Ramadan. That's the big problem. Eid al-Fitr happens on the 1st of Shawwal. Correct? Yes or no? All right. In those days, if you were going to go for Hajj, when would you leave? In Shawwal. You would leave in Shawwal to get there for Dhul Hijjah. The Ashhurul Hajj starts from Shawwal. A person can put ihram on. You might want to do it, one person. That he puts his ihram on from Laurel on the next day of Eid and says, okay, I'm getting ready to go for Hajj. Technically, he will be in ihram for all that time, unless he quickly goes there, makes Umrah, and then comes back again, and then goes back again. So technically, we are allowed to put the ihram on from Shawwal. From Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, and the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. All right? So 2 months, 10 days are Ashhurul Hajj. 2 months, 10 days are the months of Hajj. So Al-Hajj Ashhur. That's what Al-Hajj here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use Ashhur as plural. It's not Shahr. Al-Hajj Ashhurum Ma'lumat are known months. It can only be done in a certain time, right? Like there was this one person, somebody asked him, brother, did you get to go and kiss the Hajar al-Aswad? He goes, yeah, I did. He goes, astonished, how? He goes, you know what? I went to the Haram, and then there was nobody there, and I'm just kissing the stone. What? Nobody there in Haram? And you were kissing the stone? How could that be possible? Because which day was it? Because it was the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. You know why? Everybody was there, and he's there kissing the black stone. So, things, and then that's why in Hajj, it's nice to have in your caravan, meaning in your group, one person who knows Hajj, who's done Hajj many times, so that they're able to guide you through the process. And when things go wrong, trust me, things can go wrong. And every single time, there has always something gone wrong that you don't know the answer to, because it's unique. So there's just so many scenarios. This could happen, that could happen, this could happen, that could happen. One day we went, a group came and says, Assalamu alaikum, Mama, we have a question. I goes, what's the question? He goes, well, we had 200 animals. And we gave 200 people gave our money to this person, and we went there to check the animal. Animals were being slaughtered. We found out somebody's horn is broken. Some animal is lame. Some animal is this. Some animal is that. And now 200 people offered their sacrifice. Whose sacrifice was accepted? Whose sacrifice wasn't? Super problem. Because how many were good? Because 60. from the 200. I goes, we've got to make ijtihad here, brother. My ijtihad is that the first 60, the qurbani is done. The rest have to redo it. So sometimes you get faced with such a situation that you just never cross those scenarios. We used to have Sheikh Abdul, and he was a very, very knowledgeable person in regards to these issues. Very knowledgeable person in regards to these issues. Most of my Hajj, it was not learned from books. It was learned staying in his company all these years doing Hajj, and all the questions that were put to him, and the way he used to answer them. It was more practical than it was actually more practical than it was theory. But mashallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with a very in-depth knowledge of the process. So he goes, Al-Hajj ashhurun ma'lumat. So Hajj should be done. It's well known. فَمَنْ فَرَضَ فِيهِنَّ الْحَجِّ. A person who makes the Hajj incumbent upon himself. Meaning that he intends to go for Hajj. He has the means to go for Hajj, and now now he has made the Hajj necessary upon him. Then he should be mindful of three things. فَلَا رَفَثْ وَلَا فُسُوقْ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. That he should not be using anything, nothing obscene in Hajj, no obscenity in Hajj. Wala, he's not committing any sins. Wala jidal, and nor is he arguing with anybody in Hajj. The first one, obscenity. The word rafath is being mentioned here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَحِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ. Rafath is mentioned in a different place of the Quran in the words of intimacy. A person in the state of ihram, intimacy is prohibited. But not just intimacy is prohibited, anything that would lead to intimacy is also prohibited. The talk of it, obscene discussions in regards to it, hints towards it, in these type of things, all of things is also included in Rafath, that a person shouldn't use vulgar language when he is in the state of ihram. That be possible. A person is going for ihram. Trust me, people do things all the time, and people make mistakes all the time. Number one, فَلَا رَفَثْ وَلَا فُسُوقْ. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that a person should not be disobeying him. But then isn't disobeying a general term that he shouldn't disobey him anyway? But then what does disobeying him here means? So ulama have written that you do not, fisq here means that the rules and commandments that Allah has commanded you to do, and the regulations that you have been told to follow, do not disobey Allah in those rituals. Obviously, the general commandment is to everybody, is to every sin. But here to mention that means that specifically towards the rituals in regards to Hajj, more emphasized in that doesn't, it could be used generally, it could be used specifically. Wala jidal, and he should not argue. Now you have the scorching sun on your head, boiling your brains, because you don't have any hair on you. You did Umrah and you shaved your head. Now they're boiling your brains over 110 degrees coming down at you. And then you're tired. You're dirty in the sense that you have dirt all over you. You have dust on you. You have your luggage to carry. And then you also have your spouse with you who's also upset with you for not carrying the luggage properly. That was a joke, by the way. You didn't get it. You guys were serious. It was okay. He's serious here. I was just looking to see that who's listening. I just slipped it in there. But khair. So, and at that time, the probability, you're irritated, aren't you? Tell me, are you irritated or not? Sure you are. Because all the triggers, all the asbab, all the reasons for you to be irritated are present. Okay, you get a tough day, right? And the moment you get home, you've still not fixed that front gate of ours. I've told you how many times to fix that front gate. How many times? What are you going to do? You say, go back to work. Not now. You're gonna go back to work. But you say, I'll do it. What's the big deal? But eventually, so my question to you, are you irritated? Are you in an irritable mood? But then only one reason was present. And the one reason that was present is just because you're tired, right? But over there are multiple reasons for you to be irritated. For one, you're hungry, you're thirsty, are not in your regular clothing. You're not even in your regular clothing. You're in 2 pieces of garment. Me and Sheikh Abdul Mateen Sahib first time. And the person that we had with us, he said, please let me take the ihram off. And he's crying to us, Sheikh, please, just let me take the ihram off. Just let me take the ihram off. Just need one smoke. Because just need to have one smoke. Just let me take this ihram off. It's like Hazrat goes, brother, be patient, be patient. Just a small little amount of time left. So anyway, so you got your ihram on and you got the heat coming down on. Now, so many triggers are there. And then the guy next to you is sleeping on your bed also. Right? You know, place that you were supposed to be sitting on. And now, the food that came, you didn't like it. It had gone off because of the heat. It was just so hot, the food went off. Right? Now every single thing that could probably trigger you, every trigger that could possibly trigger you is there. You went to the bathroom and there's 15 people standing right in front of you. Each one holding their miswak in their hands and their ihrams on their shoulders. And it's hot. What do you do? Possibility of everybody just touching you would be like, why did you touch me incorrectly? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا جِدَالَ. You're going to have to control yourself. We see people so many times. You have to, this part, you have to pre-program yourself. Listen, if I see somebody, I'm just going to look down. I'm not even going to I'm not even going to involve myself in another person's argument. If I see we were one day sleeping in Arafah. Nice, cool air blowing from our air conditioning units. Suddenly the air stopped. I was thinking, what's happening? So we go out. There's a bunch of guys carrying our AC machine on their shoulder, taking it away. Now, tell me, are you triggered or not? Yeah. There's a bunch of guys, our AC cool, and taking it away. But luckily, you have the group leaders there to do the arguing for you. Haji should not get involved. Haji shouldn't get involved. You have the group leaders, they'll do the argument for you. Because obviously there's going to have to be some argument. Now these guys are taking the AC unit, right? Literally, they were taking the AC unit. Huge unit. I says, do you know what I said? Brother, what you doing? Because our tents doesn't have AC. Because why are you taking it from ours? So the selfishness over there, subhanallah. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.